Good morning. My name is Arlie Powell. My son and I, Jason, have Petals from the Past nursery and fruit farm near Jemison, Alabama, which is in the central part of the state. I have made pruning videos earlier in the several years ago. We're going to update some of these to show you some different techniques on how an overall pruning job on thorny blackberries. The variety of blackberry that I'm showing you today is one of the finest that the University of Arkansas released in 1996. This is called Kiowa, and Kiowa is one of the larger blackberry varieties that were released, that have been released over the last several years. This will weigh somewhere between 12 and 18 grams, which is quite large for a blackberry. Commonly they would weigh maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 grams, sometimes a little bigger. But what I want to show you is that this is only a floricane fruiting plant. It only produces fruit on the floricanes, not on the primicanes. Because with a blackberry, you have a plant which has a crown that will live many years. These plants, by the way, that we're showing you today are in their 22nd year. Commonly, plants, blackberry plants only live about 4 to 6 years, and then you put a new planting in. So the system I'm showing you today we call TPUPS, trellis production using primicane suppression. So if I show you the plant here to my right, that plant, the primicanes that you will see, the new canes that are coming, were suppressed. We suppressed them in April, May, and then we turned them loose about mid-June, and they've grown tremendously since then, and they will replace the canes that I'm fixing to cut off, and they will produce next year's crop. Okay, what I'd like to show you now is several different approaches to pruning blackberries this time of year. Right now we're at the 12th of July, and the old canes are spent. There's very little fruit left, but I'm going to show you what we do in some cases where we have a little fruit left. We can go ahead and start our pruning program, leave some of the old canes that have fruit, and then come back in about a week and finish cutting them out. We use a tie, which is nothing but a plastic tie, which is commonly used by people to secure plants in the nursery business and what have you. It works quite well. You can get different strengths. This is about a 8 millimeter, but you can get a 6, and those are about the right strengths that I would use to tie these. The wire you see here is just a common wire you can buy at hardware stores. It's 100-pound PSI, which means it'll support 100 pounds of weight. Now I'm going to start down here, and I simply take a gloved hand, grab this plant, and I simply cut every tie, because I've tied it every 6 to 12 inches when we first put it on, and that works quite well. And then I'm going to cut this one right here, and sometimes let's see, there we go. Now, again, I'm doing the same thing on this one, cutting or pulling this loose, and I simply go down to the base. You notice we have pine bark mulch in here, and simply cut this off right at ground level, and simply take this and move it out of the way. The next one, we've got one tie up here. All right. We bring this down, and again, we've got this old original tie right here. And again, I go down to the ground and I cut this off even with the ground. Now what we have left are the new primicanes that are coming up, and we're going to train these, one to the bottom wire, the second one to the top wire. They're about the same height. So what I do is I bring them up to see which one, well, they're essentially identical. This one's slightly slightly taller. So what I'll do is I'll secure this first one here, and once I do this, I separate these by about 6 inches. So I'm going to pull this one in like this, and I see where I'm going to put it, so I just wrap this around and I'll secure it like this, simply to keep this from sliding up and down the wire. Once I do that, I can simply bring this in. Now you notice I've taken my glove off because it's a little awkward to tie anything with a glove on. Now if this were a thornless one, it wouldn't be near the problem. But this particular variety is the best variety we have tried in over 20 years at this location. This one was on the ground. When it goes down like that, it makes these basal sprouts pop off, or they begin growth. So what I do is I simply go down here and I take these off, just like you see right there. There is a septoria leaf spot or a similar leaf spot that gets on ours, so I take the leaves off up to a certain height, preferably, I'll show you right here, about at least 12 to 15 inches. When I do this, that means I don't have to come in here with a spray and spray them. So I'll leave about this amount of distance with just nothing but the new cane. Then I'll leave my canopy development up here. Now, since this one has a good enough diameter on it to make these buds force out, I simply go about 1 inch above this and I cut it off. The new shoots will come from here like this up, and we will select one this direction, one this direction. Now, I take the second, basically the same thing, and if I don't get in here quick enough with these canes, they will be broken by the wind. So but what I'm going to do with this one is I'm going to bring it, notice, about 6 to 8 inches. And this works pretty well. I go around that at least once, sometimes twice, to keep it from sliding up and down the wire. And I bring this back in just like that, and I tie it. Now, because this one doesn't reach the top wire, what I do to help it and not have a problem with breakage, I simply secure one of these, bring this up to this wire right here. So now I've already got the second cane secured so it can easily go up this support plastic tie without breaking off. Then I'll come back down here, and about where I started on the other one, I simply come in. Blackberries, including this variety, gets leaf rust, stem rust. It's different from the other rust that will kill plants, but if you don't get a lot of this off of here, and the old canes have a little rust on them, it will get on the new ones. But if we do it like this, these leaves are as clean as can be, and that is a completed plant. This is something I wanted to show you relative to when you're doing gardening or even commercial fields or what have you, and you come to a plant that only has 1 renewal cane, and we're talking about using 2 renewal canes. In some cases, if I had raspberries, I'd probably be using 3 or 4 renewal canes. But this cane in my hand right here is the only cane that this plant produced as a renewal. Now, what I'm going to do is show you how to take a branch down here and create a second cane that would come up, leave this one as our tall cane, and then simply develop a second one to come up to the 30. The top wire is at 5 feet, 60 inches. The bottom wire, It's supposed to be 3 feet, but when we mulch it, of course, that takes up some of that space. But that's approximately a 3-foot wire and a 5-foot wire. If you look, all of this fruit right here is ready to pick. And except the red fruit, it will ripen over the next week. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, where we have enough of these, I'll leave these one more week, but I'll cut the top off because there's nothing up here of any value. So I'm gonna partly crop it, pick it another week on the bottom part, then come back and take the rest of it off. But I can go ahead and start my primocane now. The difference is not greatly, but what I tend to do with thorny blackberries is I always have one glove, because I can grab anything with this glove, and then I can be careful with my right hand while I'm doing all some of the other finer work. So the first thing I'll do with this is simply to cut, and in this case, to be honest, we've got fruit actually going all the way up. But in order to show you an example of where we just leave part of the plant, we'll go ahead and cut this one. And like we did on the other plant, the first thing I do is I take these ties off just like this. I find it's easier to cut them with my hand shears. I can cut that with a knife. It's hard to break. That plastic is very strong. So what I'm gonna do is come in like this and simply cut this off. And then since this is secured right here, let's see what we got here. There we go. Now, I could leave this, but I'm gonna bring it down to about here in order just to leave a portion of it so it can finish ripening some of the fruit. And we simply take it off. And I go all the way down this system. I bring it up with pressure on it, then I can easily cut it. All right, we just keep going down here, and we got one more, and that's it. Now, what we've left is I've cleared an area where I can now put this single primocane up here, and that's the next step I'll do before anything else. Since this one, if you look, this one's already over 6 feet tall. So what we do here is this. All right, I just bring it up just like you see right here. I'm gonna have it lean against one of these, and I'll take the other one around like this, and with my hand, even with thorny, you'll know if it hits me, you'll see me bleed. But let's see, there we go. Now, what I'll do here is I can go ahead and cut this off. Earlier, in one that I just did, I simply said leave about 1 inch up here. What I do is I simply come up just like this. I leave about 1 inch of this material, but I want my new side arms, my new branches, to come from below the wire up to the wire, the same thing down below. But if you notice, I inspect to see if there's anything branching. Now, by cutting this off, this will branch immensely all up and down. But here's a case where I really have to go in and do a little pruning just to create some space for me to tie my new cane to it, just like that. In other words, I'm improvising here. I'm going to bring this in just like you see right here. Now, the one thing that I do on this is I go in and I only secure it to the wire. I don't put it around that old cane because that old cane's coming out. So if you can see, basically, I've tied it right here. Now, I'm simply going to do a tie right here on the bottom wire, bring it around, and I'll bring it around like this. And when I do that, I meant to tell you, if you're dealing with a thorny type blackberry and it grabs you, you don't want to pull, you want to push. In other words, if this limb grabs me, I don't want to pull toward me, I want to push away. That's a little trick if you work with blackberries of this type that you learn quick. What I want is I want branches right here to come in here. This branch I don't particularly like because, but we'll leave it. We'll leave 1, 2, 3. We'll leave these 3 branches and I'll bend one around when we need to create branching here because we want, I've got 3 little branches, we only need 2, and we'll direct one here, one there. Now the rest of this down here is like this. Now, you notice I said I was going to branch this cane. If I do that, I don't need a second cane coming here to form on the lower branch. I'm using one cane to both branch on the upper wire and the lower wire. But here's the exception. If you don't want to do that, and that doesn't work out, all you have to do is to come down here where this one is coming out and leave that one right there. Now, maybe you can see this. This one, I'm just leaving this one as a side branch. It will come up and we could use it right here. Now, with this one branching that well, we probably don't need it. As a matter of fact, we could just cut it out. But it's an example of what you can do in retooling a plant. So what I'm doing, I'm showing you one technique to bring a low branch here up to the bottom wire. Here's another technique where we've only got one cane and we can actually make it force here and force here without having to use this. But sometimes that lower cane is the one that you need and we use that. What I would like to show you here is just a third example here of bringing up the primocanes, taking out, in this case, all of the old canes. But I just wanted to point out, mower comes through and these little primocanes are on the ground, that's what can happen. So we try to get these up just as quickly as we can. And here's an example. I think I showed this earlier, but see how this little branch is starting? And they will do that. They'll start throwing little branches all in here coming straight up. But when you see one on the ground like this, what you have to do is be real careful and bring it up carefully, because if you bring it up with too much force, and I can't take this and push it into here, I'm better to take it and gently move it over to the side a little bit and then tie it here rather than in the center, because if I put too much force, it'll break it off. So let me just show you basically what I would do with this plant, and we will finish up here. This is a part of our pruning program where we reestablish the new canes that will produce next year's crop, and we set them up on these 2 wires with 2 horizontal wires, one above the other, to let us easily train these plants, because we will be developing those branches all along here. And come October, early October, this entire trellis system will be covered in canopy, which is desirable. So again, we're simply going to, I grab it with a gloved hand, I come in here and I cut it just like that, cut it. Now, years ago, you could read about blackberries up north, and they would tell you in February, go in there with your briar hooks and cut those old canes out. If you've ever gone in freezing weather and tried to take old canes out, that is an absolute disaster. It'll kill you. This is an easy way. In the middle of the summer, we can take these and burn these things, get rid of them, and we've already got our new canes coming. So to find these new canes, if you waited till fall or winter, they're so intermeshed with each other, you will hate yourself when you get in there to prune them. Okay, let's get this out. See, that one goes with that plant. And if you don't get in here quick enough, again, you'll say, well, is this cane with that plant or is it with the other one? And see, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the biggest one. It will go to the top. But what we want to do here, go ahead and finish taking these out. That's what you do first. Then you work on your primer canes. Again, go down to the base, because the crown of this plant will live, well, these are in their 22nd year, they'll live quite well with this variety, and that's what I've found. I can't get that longevity out of other blackberry varieties, be they thorny or thornless. But with this variety, at this location, it's absolutely a beautiful thing to see, because when we get to October, we're through pruning. We don't have to go into December, January, February and prune blackberries. We're totally through. And that's one of the beauties of using this system. You got 3 little ones, you got a big one. Always start with a big one first. Bring it up gently. And let's see here. And I can take, without a glove, I can take that. Always remember the tender part of a blackberry plant. You can grab it with your hand, okay? Those thorns aren't stiff, but don't grab down here. Now, again, if I tie this is so tender right here, it could break off. So the thing you have to do is lean it against the bottom wire, because you're going to tie it in both places, and I've gone around this thing several times. All right, just like you see right there. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this one back to right here. I'm going to bring this one around this way, this one around this way, and then I'll pull it gently to that wire. When I do that, that wire is hooked on, the tie is hooked onto the wire, so that individual cane is not going anywhere. Now, the other thing that I'll do is simply come up here and put a little gentle one on this one. And how do I do that? Well, I do it like this. Because it's not quite as high as I wanted. It won't touch the top wire, so I can't branch it yet. So what I got to do is improvise, put a little knot, and then bring it and try to make it as straight as you can, okay? Bring it up like this, then simply go around this, around it, and then come in like this, put it through a little noose, very simple knot, and secure it. Go one more time. Now, I've done this so many times, I can tell you, the wind can blow awfully hard and it's not going to dislodge that cane. Now, in order to finish it, I'll start cutting right now to show you what to do with the other canes. Okay, remember what I said in some of my others. I said to come up here and take these leaves off. See how healthy, look like tobacco leaves. Now, notice I'm leaving a little stub where I cut. I'm not cutting into the flesh of that cane. That's not a good idea. Because I don't want the disease, the leaf disease, because it'll start down here on the basal leaves and work its way up. Now, before I finish cutting here, I select the one I want, because if I don't select the one I want, then some of these may break off. Now you notice again right here, it's not tough enough to be tied to here. So again, what you do is that same little technique that I showed you. Go down about 6 inches on it. Secure it just like this. And then come up. Now, what you want to do, remember, I said about 6-8 inches apart, if you could. Leaves you some work. Whenever these things start sprouting, you can get your hand in there and remove those excess shoots. Now, that's about 6-8 inches. So all I'm gonna do, again, the same way I showed you before. I go around it several times, then I come in like that with a little easy knot. Then I do it one more time. And there we are. Now, I could cut, this is the only time you'll see me, and I'm gonna cut this one. Normally, if every one of these had forced out, I would leave about 3 of them right here and then select the ones I want to go here. Because there's only one, it will be the dominant branch. Now, by cutting it off, all of these will come at about the same time, and then I can select the ones I want. And had it been 2 or 3, I probably would have left them. Now, again, go down pretty low on these. Like you see right here. Now, what you want to do is to come in way down here and make sure that the one that you've tied, you're not cutting off. Now, you get rid of the other 2. Now, again, you come in here and you take those leaves off, get them out of your way. And that is pretty well a done job, so to speak. Now, you basically clean that area there so that that leaf disease won't climb this cane. You've left enough canopy development leaves here to really push this plant. And it'll now go with this one, and we'll train this little one on the bottom wire. We'll bring this one up and train it on the top wire. And that is the July pruning on a renewal basis to bring your blackberry planting back into production next year. And this, we're in July right now. This plant will be producing berries on May the 15th of next year, just to give you an idea. So from now on, we're going to fertilize once, maybe twice, and we will put on 1 or 2 sprays for anthracnose, a disease that can cause your cane problems, and let them grow, and they're absolutely beautiful doing that. And that's our story from Petals from the past.